Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's Your Impact Attack. And we are live on YouTube, Twitch, and Netflix. No, wait, one of those is not true. I'll let you figure out which one it is. But who are we after all? Who did we ever beat? Well, we're the VBC here together, as always, on Monday nights. Best wrestling entertainment on Monday nights. And I'm the V in the VBC, the vet, Jamie Williams. With me, as always, my tag team partner, the B in the VBC, Brandon with the hot tag, tagging Brandon and Brandon. How's everything out there? Are you trapped under ice?
We were for a bit, but luckily the roads have been cleared. We can get out, we can move around, but the people are still being dumb and stupid, and not every area is completely cleared out and in the green, but it's still not too bad if you use a little common sense and think.
Yeah. Well, then that must mean it's very bad because no one has any common sense and no one thinks.
Yeah, it's just so weird, like driving around and like there's walls of ice around you, but clear roads.
Now, how common is ice where you are?
Around this time of the year, it's I'd say uncommon.
Never this bad.
No, never this bad. This was like a yeah. Like we got nailed.
Nailed. Yeah, pal. Well, with that in mind, we should wait, why is that? That's not a transition. That transition made no sense. Well, let's just go to the C. The C is the chat. Chat, everybody. Here's the chat. Who's with us?
Let's see who we got here tonight. We got Chris Winland, we got Lab Rat, we got Liz, we got Al Robinson. How y'all doing? Hope you're all having a great day. Whoop whoop.
Well, that is definitely a 4 horse people of a chat right there. Of course, we'll get more as people start filing in and everything. But yeah, it's that time. We talk about things that are going on, things that have to do with wrestling, around wrestling, and if all else fails, things that aren't about wrestling. But I will ask you first, what has come across the desk of Brandon this week? Anything pertinent that we need to talk about? I mean, we could do some society reviews is in the house. Wait. We go start off with the hottest, freshest news. It's fresh out the oven. It's straight out your mama's kitchen, like red velvet. I haven't seen her, and I think she's been relegated to Ring of Honor. The big debut on Raw minutes ago of Penta and his match with Chad Gable. Do you have any thoughts on that as you watched it live with the people? Any overall thoughts on the debut, the match, everything? I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
I liked it outside of the whole spot where they did where Gable gave him a German on the apron, and it just meant absolutely nothing. Penta came back, kept wrestling. But that's to be that's one of those things kind of you gotta expect it these days.
Well, he has zero fear of the apron, so why should he sell it? I'm actually glad though that they did that spot. I'm glad because it figures into something I want to talk about on the TNA episode. So it actually gave me a little more insight to add to a match that we'll talk about.
And they brought up the fact he's the TNA World Champion during his match.
Mm-hmm. They even talk about him being a Lucha Underground champion. Like that doesn't exist. That's like saying you worked at the, what was that place from 90210 where they all hung out? Beverly Hills 90210. You know that wasn't there like a little juice bar or something they hung out at or some shit?
I never saw that show.
All right, somebody knows what I'm talking about. Whatever. I don't know why that popped into my head, but anyway, it's like, yeah, that show doesn't exist. It's not real. So don't say you're a champion. That's like, I was a champion on the Stars show Heels. No. Peach Pit? It was the Peach Pit? Okay. I wanted to say that, but I didn't want to be wrong. See, that's one of the keys to sounding smart. I'll give you guys a little life advice. Um, if you just never say anything you're not sure about, you will always seem like a very intelligent and informed person. So that's the key. If you guys think I'm always on top of my stuff and know what I'm talking about, that's why. Uh, so anyway, yeah. So he had a big debut. Did you like the presentation? Did you like the look? Did you like his gear?
Yeah. Oh, the presentation and the way he came out. Yeah. Character, dug it. I'm with it.
Post match promo.
I like it. I'm with it.
All right, he's with it. All right. Well. Yeah, I thought it was. One thing I did notice. I mean, he's a little rusty, even though he was never the most smooth, and there was just a couple of things in there. Um, but he's so much more about showmanship. It kind of distracted some attention away from that. And Jey Uso proves that you don't have to be good to get over it. So there you go. Um, so that's the hottest, freshest news. Now, do we have any somewhat stale news? Anything come to mind? Thing you wanted to bring up?
I think like the only big thing that happened would probably be the whole thing with Vince having the hush money thing with the SEC settled. That does not mean he's in the clear. That just means that small part is done.
Yes.
Which is not even really a small part at all.
No.
Just in the context of everything going on, that's just a piece of the puzzle.
It's a piece of the puzzle. All right. So let's talk about that. Many people incorrectly thought that because people are like like you were talking about having common sense and thinking, right? We don't have that. We have headline readers. We have mouth breathers. We actually Jimmy came on live on the air and tried to bring up this story and say how that means Vince McMahon's in the clear. He literally said that, and we had to shout him down. But that's just working with Jimmy. So yes, $1.7 million Vince McMahon has to pay. That's including a $400,000 civil penalty and reimbursing the WWE approximately $1.3 million because by not disclosing that money, that means that WWE overstayed its net income in 2018 and 2021. So that is something that the SEC does not look kindly upon, because when you have you have obligations when you're a publicly traded company, yada yada yada. You already know. And that's on top of what they found that he paid $17.4 million already just in sexual misconduct, payments alone. Now, what they do say here is that there's $3 million to a former employee, right? Who that is could be anyone's guess. And another $7.5 million to a female independent contractor. I believe that's the one they're talking about in 2021. That's a wrestler. So what female wrestler in 2021 got $7.5 million? Now that one might be a little bit easier to figure out. I'm not sure who that is because I didn't follow along with this all the way through all that and keep track of these things. But maybe other people have done some detective work and figured it out. Anyway, yeah. So that's that. And speaking of ongoing investigations, Janelle Grant attorney Ed Callis released a statement that said, during his time leading WWE, Vince McMahon acted as if rules did not apply to him, and now we have confirmation that he repeatedly broke the law to cover up his horrifying behavior, including human trafficking. The SEC's charges prove that the NDA Vince McMahon coerced Ms. Grant into signing violates the law, and therefore her case must be heard in court. While prosecutors for the Southern District of New York continue their criminal investigation, we look forward to bringing forward new evidence in our civil case about the sexual exploitation Ms. Grant endured at WWE by Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis. So that is the civil suit pending the federal investigation into McMahon. Whenever they're done with that, and we'll see. And also, he's tried, like, Vince McMahon has tried to, have this case thrown out, move to private arbitration, anything except let it go to trial, which, that those actions fly in the face of all of his public facing statements. He said, he uses those phrases like, I don't even remember the phrases, but just he's basically calling her a liar, an egregious liar, and all this stuff is made up, and it's a horrible attempt to slander his character and everything. And then he's like, but by the way, can we throw this case out, or can we just move this to, if you're so sure, then just go to trial and go be innocent. But anyway, so that's what's up with that.
I mean, yeah, he had no problem. Yeah, he had no problem going to trial against the federal government and not, right, over the steroids. Why not this? A personal between you and another civilian. What do you have to hide?
Yeah, I mean, apparently you have no problem throwing money around, except when you don't disclose it. So what's a few more? Well, just take all that, that stock money and everything, and just put it towards your defense. Should be no problem. Show the world, let everybody know just how innocent you are. But that's that will unfold on its own, hopefully, as it should. What are you about to say?
You remember how Al Snow always says, like, in a court of law, it's not about obtaining justice, it's about presenting the best argument based on the law and precedent and setting new precedent.
Yep. Well, I mean, I can be almost sure that, I mean, here's the thing. He's currently being investigated by the feds for criminal activity, right? So that part, if he could, if he could get, like, if he's convicted of anything, or they find anything with that, sure, he could get a pardon from his good buddy, the president. But the civil trial, I don't know. It's just you don't get pardoned from that. You're just, if you get found that that she just wants the money and the result. So if they get that, you don't get pardoned from having to pay the money. It doesn't work like that. So whatever happens, he's still going to have to, he's have to deal with that result, whether it's in his favor, or not. Yeah. In some other sad news, the former wrestler Black Bart passed away recently due to cancer at age 76. I remember seeing Black Bart as, like, in the, like, watching World Championship Wrestling, like the old NWA stuff with Tony Schiavone and David Crockett. And Black Bart would sometimes come to the desk and cut a shrieking promo, like right at the camera, just a southern nonsensical yelling wrestling promo. I also saw this man gig, like, right in front of the camera. It was always entertaining in a bad way when Black Bart was on the screen, but unfortunately his run is now over. Do you have any Black Bart memories, or anybody in the chat?
Did not get to see any of his work, unfortunately, but that always sucks when something like that happens, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
very sad. But he'd been fighting it for almost like 2 years. Stage 4 colon cancer. So
That's a hell of a fight, man.
yeah. Well, thank you very much for everything you did, Richard Harris. Not to be confused with that other Richard Harris who was um,
No, that was different guy. That was Bart Gunn.
Blackboard Gun. Yeah, no, he was not. Yeah, Black Bart was not in the Brawl for All. What was he in? I'm sure they have like. I mean, he wrestled in Mid Atlantic, Championship Wrestling for Florida, World Class. He had a run in WCW in the early '90s, and I think he appeared in the WWE in maybe the '80s. I can't remember exactly, but anyway. Um, so that is that, and then I had one. I looked up one. I tried to look up one TNA related article, and it ended up being pretty much like nothing major, but it was just something about Matt Riddle and his current status with TNA because he did that guest appearance recently, and I guess he said that right now he doesn't have any working plans with TNA, so no news after all. But they've been in contact, so you never know. We could bring the King of Bros in. He just recently won the MLW championship, so that's what's up with him. And in another piece of news, I didn't really talk about it last week, and I couldn't be bothered to find it again this week. But basically, TNA re-signed some people, like 3 people, and now I can't remember who the 3 people were. Um,
Let me check. I know they re-signed AJ Francis.
yeah, separate from him, I think they announced 3 more people, and
Let's
this is
see.
also
Sorry. Yeah, it looks like Nick Nemeth is one of them. He got an extension.
okay. I didn't know he had signed a contract because he literally said that he was working with them on a handshake deal, so he lied. What else?
Hang on. Oof.
I know it's one of the good hands too. I think it's Skyler, the fat one signed. The fat guy signed with he re-signed with them.
Sorry.
And that other mysterious unnamed person that re-signed with TNA.
It looks like the Hardy Boys and Lei Ying Lee.
Oh, really?
At least according to Google's AI.
All right. Well, they're probably wrong. I don't know why that it wouldn't just come up when you search it that in the not AI, but it doesn't really matter because the whole thing. The reason I didn't remember and I didn't care was because I was like, okay, I wouldn't brag about signing any of these people or make this news, but but I think they felt they probably had to just do something and mention something. Like, there's no reason you would promote that you re-signed John Schuyler other than the fact that you also just had a bunch of people, like high-profile names, are getting ready to leave your company. Um, like you had Bailey, just he's done. Um, you had uh, Josh Alexander's on the way out. He's got a foot out the door. Um, so you know, Rhino. Um,
Yeah, he
so
had his
there.
swan. Yeah, he had his swan song on the show. Or at
So
least with
basically,
TNA.
yeah, so basically, you know, they probably would just want to be like, well, but look, we re-signed some people. Like we did re-sign. Look, the fat one. We got the fat good hand. Um, so so that was that, and that's all the news I have. Does anybody else have anything? Uh, if not, we could go to the Chris Winlick question, which is in the chat now. Um, he says, yeah, flips and dives. Why and why not? Why does Penta have to flip over the top rope to the outside his debut match for WWE? Why suicide dive after suicide dive at every single card? Is it worth it? Why take more risk than the payoff will be in matches that mean next to nothing? Can you recall matches you have been in that someone took more liberties than needed to get over? Have you at all? Okay, interesting questions, but I want to, appreciate your question, Chris. I want to correct you on your usage. Taking liberties doesn't mean what you made it mean here in this context. Taking liberties is, in wrestling terms, it's when you shoot on somebody without their knowledge or go into business for yourself. That's what taking liberties is. Not that you decided to do a dive, and you probably talked about that or whatever, right? It's hard to do a dive and take liberties.
Yeah, I always define taking liberties as like breaking that trust of I'm putting my body in your hands, you're putting your body in my hands, and we're trusting each other to take care of each other. And you decide to break that trust to get yourself over.
Right. Now, what you're talking about, I mean, there may not be like one set term for it. You could say going into business for yourself a little bit, because going into business could mean it could be slang for shooting on somebody, but it also could just mean you did, you know, it could just mean that you decided to uh take some extra time showboating or like eating up TV time or whatever. Just like things like that that don't necessarily hurt a person, but would make them upset with you because it's like, hey man, you did this too much or whatever. Just stuff you didn't agree to. Um, but but yeah. So all right. So flips and dives. Why not? Let's start at the beginning and break this down. Why do you do a flip or dive? The reason you do a flip or dive in a match is because the reason within the context of a pro wrestling match is because you're going after your opponent who has fled the ring. That's the reason why you do it. If you're doing it for any other reason, you're just an idiot. So what you see a lot of times is some guy will just take a bump and then slide to the floor, and then the guy will just jump on him because it's time to jump on him. But the guy slid to the floor because it was time for the other guy to jump on him, not because it made sense. So in the case of a match in which there's so much animosity between the people, the dive is supposed to represent the idea that you are willing to go this far to get your hands on this person, and he's trying to get away from you. Like he's refusing to fight you, and I am going to take the fight to you, even if I have to fly through the air and potentially injure myself. That's the story of a dive. And it's very rarely used in its proper context today because, like many things in wrestling that's been handed down over the years in the television era, since the days of Gorgeous George probably, where everybody was like, well, Gorgeous George bleaches hair blonde and wears a robe and has a female valet, so I need to do that, but you're not Gorgeous George. You understand? See what I'm saying with that? And it's the same thing. You copy it because it's working. You can't make it work. Some people can, obviously, right? Like some people are able to take things, make it their own, make it work, whatever, because they already had some tools in the toolbox that they can use along with whatever they're copying to add for flavor. If you're just diving because you've seen everybody dive it, that's what this generation is. That you got a generation of kids that saw TNA from the 2000s and were like, oh, so all these guys are diving. Just like all those guys from TNA in the early 2000s saw Lucha Libre and were like, oh, these guys are diving. Just like the luchadors and Lucha Libre saw previous generations of luchadors diving and say, well, I got to do that too because that's just what we do here, and so on and so forth. And the further it gets away from the origins of these particular ideas, the more it's done, but the less it means, to your point. But that's why you do a dive. You do a dive to tell the story that you hate this motherfucker so much that you're going to jump on him from inside the ring. That's why.
If you want to put a little bit more stank on it, after you dive on him, you throw him into the post, roll him into the ring, and try to get a pin off it.
Yeah. So why don't you do it? Well, for every reason I just laid out. You don't do it because if everybody's doing it, it doesn't matter if you do it because they're already seen it or they're going to see it later. So the best way to stand out is to do what people aren't doing. And, hopefully you can find something that gets a positive reaction that people aren't utilizing. If everybody's diving, be the guy that doesn't dive. Now, actually, Penta's a guy that does not dive as much. He doesn't rely on the dive that much. So he's much more of a character, a body language, a look. Like, he's not so much of like a flippy guy. He leaves that to his brother. His brother's not here. So does he have to flip over the top rope in his debut match? Yes. Why? Because this is going to be his biggest moment in his life. So when else are you going to do it? It doesn't mean nothing. It means something. But where this is coming from, it sounds like, is that you're just tired of seeing dives and now you look at Penta as another guy doing it. Well, he kind of, in this moment, if he felt like that was a thing to do, regardless of whether he needed to or not, I feel like it was important for him to establish something. And then once Phoenix ends up joining the company, if they work together, like as a tag team or whatever, he can leave a lot of that stuff up to him. But he wanted to do a big dive on his big Netflix debut, and he did, and I don't really have a problem with that. I do have a problem with the way that if guys, another reason why not, guys ain't catching you. I see a lot of dives where people have no interest in catching you. And that's because, like, if you see a anywhere from 150 to 250 pounds of humanity flying through the air at you, you probably don't want to be there. But then again, you're supposed to. So you half-ass do it. And a lot of guys, and kind of like Penta did here with Chad Gable, he just like basically gave himself a hip toss out the ring and landed on the floor. And that can't be good for your hips and back and legs and everything else that's on your body. So, if the guy's not going to catch you, you should do it. Another thing I don't like is when guys that are really big, do dives, and it's like you're diving on somebody that's way smaller than you. You're asking them to catch you. That's such a prick move.
They can't base for you. Right.
So Brian Cage diving on people. Like, what? Just stop. It's disrespectful. It's discourteous. Be nice. If Brian Cage is diving on Omos or something, then yeah, okay. But if you're diving on Commander, that's fucked up. So, that's another reason not to do it. But yeah, I think in the long run, it's always better to limit those things. And if you can't come up with a good reason to do anything in your match that has to do with why the match is happening and who is in the match, I think you should not do it. I think if you're doing anything for its own sake, you should not. That includes throwing a punch. It even includes things like going for a cover. If it doesn't make sense to go for a cover, don't go for a cover. It doesn't have to be limited to dangerous things like dives, or big bumps and stuff. It could be little things too, you know. Uh, any time you can't think, if when people would this, I don't have a match that I've been in necessarily. I know people tried to get their stuff in, and I usually would just like I would just ask them, well, why would I do that? And if they didn't have a good answer, then we wouldn't do it. But if I would sometimes just let them do it, just so they would mess it up, like because I knew it wasn't going to go well, and I would just that sometimes that's the only way people learn, Brandon, right? Like you could be told a million times, but until you go out there and fail yourself, then you're like, oh, that's what they mean when they told me no 50 times.
Sometimes you got to see and experience it for yourself to be like, oh, okay.
Yes. Nothing like the indifferent silence of a crowd of people to let you know that you shouldn't have done what you just did. So yeah, that's basically I mean that's basically all I have to say about it. But is there anything else that you wanted to mention about diving, dives in particular, or even just high risk stuff?
I mean, like, again, you can make anything in wrestling work. It just has to be done and presented in a logical manner in the context of you're doing this with the intention of trying to beat this guy and win the match. Like you could do a spot with a dive and it's with the intention of, knocking him out and getting the count out.
You always have to serve um the story you're telling, the characters that you are, and what everybody else is doing on the show. So to the point about having too many suicide dives on every show, if somebody has like for example, on Raw tonight, if I know Penta's big moment and big debut, and I'm Triple H, I'm getting my producer meeting and I'm going to say, all right, no dives except in Penta's match. And then it means something. And you didn't even have to tell Penta. You just had to tell all the other people that are helping other people put matches together, hey, maybe no dive for you tonight, right? And if they're good, they won't have a problem with that because you didn't need a dive to get over. So that's basically how I look at it. Unfortunately, now we have to look at TNA because I guess we're about a week out or so from Genesis, which is on a Sunday. Which is strange. But that's okay because I wouldn't even bother trying to watch it until, an early Monday morning anyway. So that works out for me. But we'll have one more show to go home before Genesis. This is the go home to the go home, I guess, however you want to call it. And it took place on January 9th, 2025. We have a catch-up packet to let everybody know what's going on with our principal players. And there we have that DQ. Hopefully it's not Hunt's.
It's Wendy's. But I'm pretty sure they use
I couldn't see the glare on the... I just assumed. But, all right. So we're starting out with a mooseless system versus Bert the Octopus and, a guy that's bringing shame to the personage of Doctor Doom. It's a 6-man to open, and yeah, we get a KIA on JDC. The system gets heat back with chairs, and they Pillmanize poor Jonathan Gresham, who just can't catch a break. Do you think the reason that Jonathan Gresham has completely just been marginalized, and like everything that he was trying to do, they were like, we're just going to abruptly stop that and not mention it anymore, and you're just buddies with these people, and then we're also gonna, you'll be the one to get your neck broken with the chair and all this other. Do you think he's still carrying around that years old copy of the PWI 500 and like trying to like politic for himself with that? Is that why this keeps happening to him? By any means, is that possible? uh I don't know. Anyway, they Pillmanize the kid, and then they, you know the other two guys come with their own folding chairs, and then the system runs away.
I mean, at least it was something, I guess.
Come on, you gotta give me more than that, dude. You gotta give me more than that.
Uh,
It was.
it was
You can
quick
say
and
that about
painless.
everything. Everything was something. What was this? What the fuck was this?
I mean, at least they could have done something more with this. Like they got a hit list or something, and Gresham was the first one on, and I don't know.
Yeah, why? What did Johnny Gresham ever do to the system? God, this God. People are like, I swear, I swear, TNA is so they're just doing stuff. It doesn't. They just exist. They're just out here existing. Okay, all right, that's fine. It's fine. Forget it. And he won't come back. Like we won't see him. There won't be a vignette in the hospital where he's like laying in bed with a neck brace, and it'll look like, one of those like straight to streaming films that TNA is always getting sponsored by. It'll look like a trailer for that where he's like in the hospital bed, and like his dark self walks up to his light self on the hospital bed, and his dark self is wearing the mask, and everything, like, and they're doing that, like, that shutter camera, and we were not going to get any of that. We're not going to get Jonathan Gresham visiting himself in the hospital or anything. Like, he's just going to be like, well, he's just gone for a while now. So,
Yeah, they dropped that storyline right out of nowhere. Like, remember when we had Kushida like doing running tests on the ooze?
yep. They had all that stuff, and then he got sick and he couldn't make the show, so they had to just. Kushida had the whole Great Muta inspired anti-ink gear, and yeah, Dark Octopus Day. That'd be the name of the movie. All right. Anyways, well, speaking of dropping the ball, let's go back to a guy. I guess they're trying to course correct. Is it too late? Time will tell. Um, but they do a package on the, you know, on Joe Hendry here. They're talking about the 4-way coming up. And the package is on Joe Hendry. He talks about how judo, acting class, and music led him to wrestling. It's basically everybody's path, right? Like we all did that. Um, but yeah, so this was actually long. I watched this on 2 times speed, and it still took like 5 minutes. So this was like a long, 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 long Joe Hendry story, like DVD special feature here. What'd you think of it?
I liked it. It was pretty good, but it came across very much like a segment of behind the music before they went in between commercial breaks.
Right. Maybe even longer than one of those. Uh, yeah. Any other thoughts on it, or
No, I liked it. I thought it did a good job of like kind of explaining who Joe Hendry is and adding a little bit of extra stuff that we weren't really aware of.
they had a lot of photos from like his days as in like a garage band and other stuff.
I didn't know a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, nobody did. Most people still don't know Joe Hendry from TNA, so I'm sure they don't know about his aspiring indie band days. But my only problem with it is something that Joe Hendry actually said in this, because TNA should probably do more stuff like this. if all the rest of the stuff that they're going to do is angles that make no sense and other cinematic stuff like, you know, the ceiling cam when you know, Steve Macklin's trying to sleep in his hotel room. So like if those are the only other options, then I'd rather we just see more like documentary like stuff like this to fill the time. Um Actually, this is what Ring of Honor was doing during the pandemic. They would have like a match, you know? It'd be like, you know, so and so versus so and so. Let's say it was Shane Taylor versus Danhausen or whatever. And then they would have like each person would get like a several minute like sort of promo slash documentary short documentary thing, you know, and then it's one person, then the other person, and by the time that, you know, by the time that they're both done, you're ready now to see this match. You know, even if you didn't know that it was going to happen before. So that's how they made the most of the pandemic, and I think they had the best approach of any of the companies, actually, the way it came off. But nobody watched it because it's Ring of Honor, so who cares? But
I did happen to
uh,
catch a bit of it one time at one of my old jobs. We had our TV in our lobby, and we had one night we had the Bally Fitness channel, and they were showing Ring of Honor, and I was caught a bit of it, and they were showing it almost like it was a kind of behind the scenes business of the business type thing.
yeah, um, yeah, but I mean, you know, essentially, it was just kind of like what they did here with Joe Hendry. But the problem I have with what Joe Hendry did, he said he talked about how, you know, he it was like the pay per view that got him into TNA hooked or whatever was Genesis with Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe or whatever that, you know, that one. And he's like, and now I've got this, you know, now I've got this championship match coming up at Genesis, and he's like, he's like, you cannot write this if you tried. And I'm like, no, that's exactly what they did. They did write this. They wrote this like this. You could have won this back at Bound for Glory. They wrote it like this. So yes, you can. That only works in real sports where the moments come up, you know, due to fate and, you know, fate. But yes, you can't say that in pro wrestling. It doesn't make sense. So now we have Savannah Evans versus. Well, there's one Zaya came out and she said that she's not medically cleared to face Savannah Evans. But this person is. It's another Zaya, but she's not Zaya anymore because we got this Zaya here now. So this is Lei Ying Lee. This is Lei Ying Lee versus Savannah Evans. Your thoughts?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did Lei Ying Yi went over, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you think Savannah Evans has a rolled up copy of the PWI 500 that she carries her?
Maybe she needs one.
Does she borrow it from Jonathan Gresham? Or was
Gresham.
her placement that year not as good, so she needed a different issue than he has? I don't know. Not
Yeah,
that. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, like this should have been more of a pay-per-view match because you had the story of her being injured. You set it up with you build, you know, Savannah by having her just destroy people. Then Lei Ying Yi shows up to, you know, fight her off or something, set up the match, gets a revenge, babyface goes over.
Nah, let's not do that. Let's just beat her here. Let's beat her here and now. Let's do that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that part as far as the booking goes, but yeah, I just don't know that I don't know what you're like. They have no plan for Savannah Evans. That's for sure. She's not even like a win over her means nothing for Lei Ying Lee, so it doesn't. There's no reason to do that either. You should just have Lei Ying Lee beat some job lady again, if that's the case, because Savannah Evans hasn't been properly built up enough to feed. So I think the other thing I noticed was that I guess no one wants to take Lee's finisher, that like trouble in paradise kick or whatever that she does, because everyone that's taken it, it looks like absolute shit because they all like cringe and like flinch and like don't like not getting like not catching a guy on a dive. Like, you're not gonna take this poor girl's kick. Just let her kick you. She's not gonna kill you. You know, just you make it look like shit. So unless you're doing that on purpose because you have boo boo face because you had to lose, then don't do that. Just stagger up, feet around, take the kick, take it flush, take a bump. You know, help the girl out. Jeez.
I do have to ask this question because it is the wrestling business. Is it possible that there is a group chat among like a lot of the women's wrestlers? Hey, we don't like her, shit on her finish or something like that.
I mean, it's always possible. Sure, it's possible. I mean, she seems like an absolute sweetheart. I don't know why anybody would have a problem with her.
I mean, it's the wrestling business, man.
Right.
They can find
that's
any
the only reason. Yeah, that's the only reason we would, in a normal human society, high functioning normal humans. Well, what even is that? What am I even talking about? Whatever. There's no such thing. Everybody's a moron. Yes, it's possible. To answer your question, it's possible. I just don't think so. Yeah. So, anyway, speaking of group chats, Jordan Grace takes the microphone away from Gia and is like, Tessa, if you want to fight, then meet me in the ring, bitch. So I guess, potentially we could see a bitch meet Grace in the ring. I don't know. We'll have to keep tuned in to find out.
Okada's coming in?
Yeah. If you didn't turn it off during the 6-man at the start, when you saw Eric Young making his entrance. So we think we're going to get a fight here between Jordan and Tessa, but what we really need is Kurt Angle versus Jeff Jarrett from Genesis '09. That, pal, that's ratings. So, yeah.
Play the entire match.
Yeah. This couldn't have been the entire match, could it? I feel like they cut a chunk out.
There was a chunk cut out, but it's probably about a good solid 10 minutes.
Right. And this is the second time now that they've done this to eat up time on the show. So, Rosemary is keeping an eye on Masha Slamovich, but it appears to be the eye of some sort of an insect because it looks like a prism, like you would see like through a fly, like a fly's vision or something. Is Rosemary actually an insect all along, and we never knew? No answer.
Get me the fly, pal.
Yeah, the fly. The fly. Mike Santana versus the Northern Armory. This is a gauntlet match. The first match is against the guy that kind of has a physique. The second match is against the guy that doesn't have a physique. And the third match doesn't happen because the first two guys jump Santana, and Josh Alexander comes down and they beat him up and they get their headgear. So is Mike Santana TNA's Jey Uso? Society Reviews asks. No, because Jey Uso's over. But other than that, yes, everything's the same. Yeah, I did not. The thing is, when Josh walks, both these guys are gone. So I hope they're enjoying their free lunch while it's here. And Save your money, guys. These will be the biggest paydays you will ever earn. I promise you. I'm not gonna bother to learn their names either. The one guy, the guy with the body, like he looks like the guy that if he showed up, at your local indie, it would be like, oh, this guy is kind of looks professional. He's got some gear and he looks like he works out. He'd be like a memorable guy on that show where a bunch of guys are in like tank tops and the garbage bag pants and stuff like that. But in a regular wrestling company, no. And he's one of those guys that like, I don't know how to do it. He just does like, he has like indie match. He has the whatever I was saying about the people just copying stuff they see from like Japan and Mexico. And he just moves like that. He does that pose where he like puts both his arms out to the side. Like how many times did he do that? Like they do the big arms pose, like get up. Like I hate everything about both these guys. Any thoughts on this angle here? Did you think it was good to just beat the shit out of Santana since, I mean, he's obviously winning at Genesis, so it doesn't, there's really no doubt about that. Josh gets his headgear back.
Not bad putting, heat on the heels going into this and making it look like a setup. I mean, like, you can either make it look like both guys laid down for Santana just to jump him, and they could be at full strength.
They didn't do that. The first guy had like a 5-minute match. He got offense in. It was terrible. The second guy did stuff too. The best part of the whole thing to me, and that's why it's a shame. Well, it's not a shame that Josh is leaving. Good riddance. But the problem is with that, he's just going to show up on one of the other shows I watch, so it's not really riddance. But it's just that now that he's out the door, he's being the most interesting he's ever been. This is like the same thing that happened to Batista when he was about to leave wrestling for good. Like right in the 9 months to a year before he was going to leave and go act in Hollywood, he finally got the wrestling business. He finally got it. Like everything was clicking. He was having good matches. He was great on the mic. Like his character was just awesome. Like everything about Batista, Blue Tista, like all that stuff was just really, it was all working. And then he left wrestling and it's like, oh man, what we could have had for the previous 10 years. Josh Alexander's not as good as Batista was in that regard, but I just did like the part where when he got his headgear back and the people were booing him and he just was like, with the headgear flap. That was fun. And the fact that I'm using that to praise Josh Alexander shows you the bar that has been set by him in this company.
Well, in fact, too, they're chanting, "You look stupid," as he's putting the headgear on.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what it was. You look stupid, yes. Rosemary the Fly is at some sort of a bar, and she's got like one of those drinks that you might get at a juice bar, like a Jamba Juice. She's got like a Jamba Juice something. She's sipping it. Doesn't really fit the character, but that's fine. And Raven pops up, and she holds him at knife point, and he suggests that she have a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match with that person,
Masha.
Yeah. What do you think? You ready for a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match? Because Masha can't help herself. She's got to have these garbage matches, even though she's really good.
Now, I think it'll be good. It's Masha and Rosemary. I think they'll make it work.
Well, if anybody's going to make it work, I just don't.
And it's also insinuated that Raven might be involved in the match somehow.
Well, I don't know which one of us is more disinterested, me or Raven. I'll pop in. I'll pop in and watch a match. Uh, hey, the Good Hands. One of these guys got re-signed. They're gonna talk about sports teams, local sports teams, and lose to the Rascals. Thoughts?
Typical good hands fodder.
God, this is so bad. Rhino's doing Stevie Richards Fitness, and King Kazarian comes in and does his condescending thing, where you know.
Shoves that trophy in your face and rocks a delicious tan.
That's right. It's tremendous. Bert and Eric are mad at the system. And then, first, coach, first class, we'll just call him first class. First class is willing to step over them if that means getting a shot at tag team gold. So we're going to get that hotly anticipated Macklin and Young versus AJ and Navarro match that we always wanted.
I got to give Casey Navarro his props. He's getting better every week, every time I see him.
Is he? Okay.
At least as far as his character and performance goes.
Okay. All right. I won't argue because I just want to keep the show moving. Do you want to know something?
Yes.
Do you want to know something?
I already said yes.
Oh, man. Yeah, Moose is the GOAT. It's funny. See, I did a play on words there because Moose is an animal and a GOAT is an animal, but he was referring to being the greatest of all time as the X Division champion. And then he takes his belt and he has Lish throw the belt on the floor outside the ring and get that piece of garbage out of his ring because he's going to debut a new belt at Genesis. And then you guys, okay, I don't know who all watched in the chat and actually watched this. You'll never guess who showed up to tell Moose off for the disrespect that he showed the X Division. You will never guess. Go ahead, chat, guess. You'll never guess. Unless you watched it. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to talk so that there's not dead air, but I'm just waiting for somebody to guess who showed up to get in Moose's face and read him the riot act. Labrat says some redneck. Oh, shit, you guessed it. Fuck, Labrat got it on the first guess. Rosemary's boyfriend. Oh, man. I don't know who that is. But if it's this guy, hey, I'm available, Rosemary. Yeah. Andrew Everett. You guys remember Andrew Everett? He was the guy that wasn't Trevor Lee. And he's the guy that the guy with no physique in the Northern Armory feels good standing next to. Hey, Brandon, have you ever been a fan of like a guy that's 5'5" wearing the single strap singlet like that all the giant wrestlers wear? Have you ever been like a big proponent of that, or do you always kind of feel like the one strap is kind of for the giants?
Yeah, that's I always associated that with Andre.
Yeah.
Well, and Big Show.
Yeah. Yeah, and other giant guys that have done it that aren't Andrew Everett. So he cut a promo to like stand up for the X Division and everything that it meant to him and that he believed in, and he never even got a chance to be the X Division champion, and you know, how dare Moose and all this stuff. And it was cringe. Like, this was It was cringe delivery. It was cringe watching the audience not react to it at all. Like no one, not even like the one guy that goes woo, like nothing. It was collectively like I think they were all just squinting, trying to figure out who this guy was. Like, who is this guy? Am I supposed to? They're like, if there's a hushed murmur in the crowd, yeah, if you couldn't see from the nosebleed seats, which were 35 feet away from the ring, um, you were looking and just trying to be like, I'm sorry, I don't know who this guy is. Is he still talking? Like, I haven't listened to anything he said because I've just been trying so hard to figure out if I'm supposed to know him or not. I feel like I should be popping for what he's saying, but I can't because I didn't listen. Um, yeah. So nobody was interested, and this turned into a match somehow. The only person interested was Ace Austin. He was backstage watching the monitor in picture, but nobody else is interested until Moose took Moose grabbed this kid by the throat and choke slammed him on the apron, and then went outside, scraped him off the mat, and power bombed him on the apron. Now, here's where a smart booker would have just said, that is the finish, and then this guy gets stretchered out. That wasn't the finish. It went on slightly longer, and then Moose put a foot on his chest and pinned him. But that's really not important because it's not like anybody thought he was going to win. We're getting live reports that Raw is over, which would put it at approximately 2.5 hours. So hey, nice. But yeah. So yeah. Now I'll address this comment. Society Review says this is the problem when you book a heavyweight to be the X Division champ. Moose looks like Giant Gonzalez compared to Andrew. Well, that's what they want. That's exactly why you would do it. And it also is supposed to get the whole idea being like, you know, it's supposed to get Moose heat, you know, like he's slumming it or whatever because he can't be the world champ. It's the idea. I mean, wouldn't you think?
Yep. And you build him up as this dominant X Division champion until you're ready to have him drop the belt to the guy you want to make as your next X Division babyface.
Yes. Unless you just make him a liar and say he does option C anyway.
That's another route you can go.
Whatever you do, be sure that on the way to that booking, you try to injure Andrew Everett so he doesn't come back ever again and be a part of the show and ruin it. So here's the part where I wanted to talk about, you mentioned in the Penta match, the German suplex on the apron spot. So here, what happens is, that it's that useless woman ref, and this guy, you know, is like murdered on the outside of the ring. She comes outside and does the like checking on him thing, right? But this is like the shoot check. So she goes to ask him if he's okay, and he gives her the Iggy that he's okay. So she just goes right back in the ring. Like, oh, well, even though he looks like he's just dead on the floor, I guess he's okay. So I'll just go back in now. So what the hell were you doing out there? I hate that spot. It's so bad. If you are hurt, you can communicate to the referee that you are hurt through a chain of communication that doesn't involve them going out to the floor and squeezing your fucking hand, right? The other wrestler can tell the referee if you're hurt or not, like if that's the case.
Right. You can easily cover that by you hit that spot, you go into the ring and say, hey, go check on him, but then come back and start your count.
Yeah, but no, you don't do that. No, you don't do that at all. You just, if the guy's hurt, you got to tell the other guy to tell the ref. But you don't have her go out to
Oh yeah,
look at you, because then you're going to abandon him, even though he's still selling. So like, to the eyes of the audience, it looks like the referee just went out there for no reason, and you're exposing the business as phony. So how do you get around that? Well, I'll tell you how, because this is what happened when you did it on Monday Night Raw. Gable suplexes Penta on the apron. Penta looks like he's dead. The referee, Rod Zapata, goes out there and tries to check on Penta. He checks on Penta. He stays with Penta. Chad Gable goes and attacks Penta and pushes, like get out of here. Like, shoves the referee off. So now you've checked that he's okay, but it's not you that left him. It's Gable that came and like continued attacking. So there's a reason why everybody was where they were. Now, did they do everything perfectly later on in the match regarding that stuff? No. But that's beside the point. The point is, I saw that spot, and then it reminded me back to this match where this referee did the shitty indie ref thing. But that's the whole idea. Like, we have this, you try to blur these lines, whether you try or not, you're doing it, of kayfabe and reality, where guys take these bumps, and the referee, the bumps are so sick that referees have to check and see if they're actually okay, instead of just staying in the ring and counting them out, which is what they would do if you're spending time outside the ring. So now you have to leave your post, go check on the person for real, make sure they're not paralyzed, then go back to doing the fake stuff. That's the status that we're at right now. So you're killing selling, basically, because now I can't, if I sell, like, I'm basically burying the referee, because the referee's leaving me when I'm potentially, too injured to continue, even though in reality I'm not. I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking too much. Maybe I should stop caring. How about that? Why don't I just stop caring about wrestling? Jordan Grace is stomping around backstage. She still hasn't found the ring, where she said she was going like an hour ago in the program, I guess. And Sami Callihan only has a minute to pitch to Santino the reasons why he deserves a tag team title shot with PCO. He only has a minute to pitch this, because he saw Fat Eddie in catering, and he's got to hurry up and get back, or there will be nothing left. So he's got to hurry up and pitch this now. And Death Meat ends up getting... Okay, this is how it works. So Santino puts Death Meat in a non-title tag team match against the Hardys, who are the champions. And if they beat the Hardys, they can be added to the tag team title match of the Rascals and the Hardys at Genesis. So if you beat the champions, you earn your way into an opportunity to be in a match that you could lose without losing. Did I get that right, or did I miss something?
something like that. How about, like, if they beat the Hardys, they get the winners of Genesis?
Well, that was Sammy's original idea.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, actually, his original idea was like,
We got next.
yeah, we got next. So, all right. Again, better not to think about it. They're just going to do what they're going to do. So Jordan Grace finally finds the ring. It must have been a huge building. She finds the ring. She's like, get out here. And Tessa does, in fact, get out there and, jump her from the front this time. And they just start fighting, and there's a big pull apart. Guards, more guards. This is it's like a Lesnar Goldberg situation. We got to get 20 security guards out here for this. And finally, by the way, did you have any commentary on Jordan Grace, Tessa Blanchard pull apart?
Not really. No, it was I mean, how many of these have we seen?
Quite a few. At least this time we didn't see any on the show. I mean, we did see a Pillmanization, but other than that, I mean, security didn't run out and try to stop that. There was like, oh, who is that? Who's getting their neck broken? Oh, it's Jonathan Gresham. All right, I'm staying back here. I'm not going out there. Um, so looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event. It's Rhino and Joe Hendry versus the Zigglers. Anything to say about the match?
I mean, it was all right. It went a little too long. Other than that, it's fine for what it was. I think we could have had a little bit more of a cliffhanger ending, other than just Joe and Nick staring each other down. We could have had some JBL involvement. We could have had some kind of miscommunication, or just something to put a little bit more spice and actually further the story and heat or build or tension between Nick and Joe, with Ryan stirring the pot.
No, that's crazy. I got an idea. Let's just hit the standing O on Ryan Ziegler, and then let's just celebrate and wave our hands from side to side in Dolph's face as he stands on the apron looking disappointed, and then abruptly end the show. That's what we should do. I think that's much better than what you said. TNA, ladies and gentlemen. TNA. The hottest company named TNA in wrestling today. Well, any final thoughts on this outstanding program? Or would you like to answer the question, how do you not book Tessa Blanchard in a work shoot?
I mean, they kind of sort of are a little bit. They're just like only dipping their toes just a slight little bit in there.
Well, we're not sure if she works there. Because if you saw last week, they had security posted up as if they weren't going to let her in. So. Or like, maybe with all these re-signings, like they've re-signed people, or if they are signing new people, for example, like perhaps with those contracts could come a little provision, like a paragraph in there that states like, okay, you're signing with this company to work here, and as a protocol, you are not to show up in a hoodie and attack somebody as your debut in this company. Like, we have to know, we're going to announce you. We'll have music, maybe even video packages, things to promote you, and we'll do it that way. But you are absolutely not allowed. Attacking somebody in a hoodie as your debut is grounds for immediate termination of this contract. Like, something like that could prevent these kind of things from happening in the future. These confusions, like, do I show up for work? Do I not? Yeah. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Everything on this show that isn't Moose is a drain on my psyche. And even the stuff that's involved with Moose, it's like I have to make concessions. Like, I have to watch Andrew Everett, cut a promo for several seconds. My life is very, very difficult as a result of this. Everyone should pity me and Brandon and anybody else who watches this. But we're happy to come on here and talk about it with you. And that's going to be, that part won't change, at least not for the foreseeable future. It'd just be so much nicer if TNA could get their shit together. So, but that's it. So No punching up Impact this week. Is that correct? I don't have one
Yes,
of
that
those.
is. Yeah, that is correct. Unfortunately, with a lot of stuff I got going on with professionally and personally, I just did not really have the time to be able to get it done. I apologize, guys. I will try
All
to
right.
have a two-parter next week.
All right. We'll do a makeup. Um, wait a minute. That's going to be a supersized show. We're going to have Impact, Genesis, and a double. Well, we've done it before. So with that being said, we will let you guys go. We will tell you where you can find us when we're not talking about TNA. Brandon, you first.
As always, you can catch me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X at LG Brandon Whoop. I am also on twitch.tv/LG Brandon Whoop Whoop. See our schedule for this week. Tomorrow we got HMG After Dark. Not sure what is on the menu for that evening, other than we're doing a show. Wednesday, of course, AEW Dynamite watch along and belt count. Last week we only had 2 belts, the tag titles.
Really interesting.
And then Thursday we got I think we're gonna be doing HMG After Dark once again. Not sure what will be on the menu for that night as well. Again, we'll get it figured out. Then of course Friday the SmackDown watch along, which we're doing bell counts for that, which they've been beating Dynamite for like the last 2 months, like a long ass streak.
Can we talk about that for 1 second here? You know, these two companies, AEW and WWE, that is, I have noticed a distinct pattern for both these companies. So what they do is this. Since 2019, AEW has done whatever they wanted, hot shotting, whatever. Then everything they do, Jim Cornette complains about on his weekly 2 podcasts. Then AEW, like 4 to 6 months down the road, addresses things that Jim Cornette said. They just can't do it right when he says it because it makes it seem like he's, steering their ship. So they have to wait until people forget about what he said, and then they implement all those notes that they took, and then they do those things. However, in the process of doing those things, much like we were talking about just copying things that you don't understand, they inadvertently create a new set of problems that has to get addressed, and then Jim Cornette complains about those, and then those go forward and they don't get addressed for another 6 months, and so on and so on and so on. WWE, on the other hand, watches AEW, and they probably like all laugh at everything that AEW is doing, and then 6 months to a year, whatever down the road, they do what AEW does. Like they started doing these AEW like scrums at their pay-per-views. They started adding a crazy amount of belts that nobody needs.
How long before we get our WWE version of the G1 or Continental Classic?
I mean, they brought back King of the Ring, didn't they? And they're going to do it again. So they already have their own, like, they may not do a round robin format tournament, but there's always more tournaments to do. And I don't have a problem with tournaments as long as you just make the tournament its own thing and make it prestigious in its own way. And it takes time to build those kinds of things up. But as far as the other stuff goes, and I know what people will say. The person that thinks they're intelligent will say, well, I mean, the WWE makes these belts so that they can sell more belts as like replica belts to marks who like to carry belts. They're just, it's just smart business to be able to do this. My response to that is, well, even if that's the case, you don't need to do that. All you need to do, you don't need to introduce an entire new belt. All you need to do is update the belt design, and then people will buy it again. So instead of creating a women's United States championship or whatever bullshit that you did, just change the women's championship to not just be the fucking boring ass logo. Give it a new design every year and a half, 2 years, and let people buy that instead. You know, uh, I don't know. It just seems like it makes sense to me, and it's very obvious. And they used to do that. Like, how many times in the '80s did that WWF title change designs? They had that big green one with like the gold plates on it, and then they had that kind of weird looking oval one, and then they had the eagle one that everybody loves, and then they kept changing it. So like that's their main title. So just do that with other titles, and then if you really are selling all these belts to belt marks, then they'll just buy the updated design, and you don't have to worry about cluttering up your show with unnecessary championships. But anyway,
Ryan,
yeah, it's
yeah, and those,
AEW.
yeah, those marks love to show off those belts too, just for content for their websites or YouTube channels.
Right. All right. Well, anyway, so that's that. Were you through the week yet, or did I interrupt?
Oh, let's see. Then Saturday, what we got Saturday? We're gonna be doing the TNA Impact replay watch along to get ready for the live watch along of Genesis on Sunday.
Live. All right. Well, anyway, so that will bring us to our next Monday show. We'll see you at our normal time of 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Now, for me, Add a Opinion Have everywhere. Every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, with Big Ray Hernandez for Next Level Wrestling review. NXT, the number one women's promotion in the world. Then you get 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sundays with myself and Jimmy T for The Wreckage, the fastest week of AEW review shows in the world, even though we no longer have Rampage to talk about, but somehow our shows have been taking a little bit longer than I'd like recently. We used to be the AEW Speed Champions, and I think we dropped that belt to somebody. I don't know, probably like Apollo Crews or something. But yeah, so there's that. Then check out Wrestling with Rip Rogers every Friday, except when they're not, every concrete time, except when they change it. But normally it's supposed to be on noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. But last week it was on Thursday, and you never know. So just hit that notification bell, and then that way you'll be able to watch them go live anytime they're on, and you can ask Rip Rogers a question for free. But if you pay him money, you'll definitely get your question answered. And then check out the Stevie Richards Show every Friday. Drops new content. He's been talking about this past week's episode. He talked about the big Monday Night Raw debut on Netflix. So if you hadn't had enough of people talking about it, I can at least guarantee you that Stevie's takes on it will be quite different than like the vast majority of the people. So please check that out. So that's going to just about do it for us. Hopefully I didn't forget anything.
Oh, I forgot something. In about 10 minutes from now, we'll be actually right back here on the HMG YouTube channel, finishing up Raw at 1.25 times speed.
All right. Well, Raw's finished, so you can watch it whatever speed you want. You can watch it at normal speed, half speed, quarter speed, any speed, double speed.
High speed chicken feed.
High speed. WWE Speed Champions. So yes, go over there, and so that's gonna wrap it up for us here. And so for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign off line.